forward. All right. So, one thing we're going to talk about today is how to build your meal plan for better results. So, we got Garfield here. I think that's lasagna. I think is what Garfield typically ate. I can't remember, but I think that's lasagna. Um, but if your meals are random, your results are going to be too. So, when it comes down to training for fat loss, muscle gain, body recomp, really anything that we do, it's not just about what you eat. It's about when and why if we're really trying to get the most results just from the smallest of changes. So now let me preface this before we get into this. Meal timing is not magic. You're not gonna just tweak your meals here or there and it's gonna make a tremendous change, but it absolutely affects training performance, recovery. The biggest one for me is nutrient partitioning, excuse me, and this is whether food gets stored as muscle or fat, hunger control throughout the day. So, with all of that being said, we're going to walk through exactly how to structure your day around your training window, your workouts, and why the timing of your carbs, protein, fats, all that can change the game, even if it's just very small tweaks. So number one is going to be understanding the training window. This 4 to 6 hour block around your workout is what I like to call the training window. You've probably heard of something called the anabolic window, and that isn't really a thing. That's basically telling you that you have to consume food within this certain amount of time, or the workout that you just did was a waste of time, right? I know guys who would have cereal in the car in Tupperware containers as soon as they got done training and would destroy that cereal, dry cereal, before they drove home because they had to stay within the anabolic window. And that's just a load of crap. It does not exist. That's just not the case. Now, this training window though is a little bit different. Maybe it's just different nuances, but to me, it's different. So your body is going to respond to food differently during this training window because of how insulin, cortisol, and nutrient partitioning shifts around your training. So your muscles are going to become more sensitive to nutrients, especially carbs and amino acids around that training period. So that means that your pre and your post workout meals, they do matter a lot. That's why that I typically give people a pre and a post training meal. Now, if you have 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, and we try to differentiate pre post training meal, that's just kind of nuance, right? Because if you only have 2 meals, one of them has to be pre, one of them has to be post. If you got 3 meals a day, that really depends on what time of day that you're training. But nonetheless, let's dive into why this stuff matters. So the first one is the pre-workout meal. This is going to be your fuel tank. This is what's going to drive you during that exercise bout, right? This is going to help sustain energy, increase focus, prevent muscle breakdown. It's going to help flatten any kind of blood sugar spikes that may happen mid workout. And what you want to do is you want to eat this meal, if all possible, 60 to 90 minutes before training. Um, if it's like a full meal, now if it's just a snack, maybe 30 minutes to an hour somewhere in there. Essentially, I don't want you eating chicken and rice in your car. You take the last bite, you close the Tupperware, you hop out, walk in the gym, and training within 5 minutes. That's not what you should do. Now, what this should include is lean protein. I'm not going to put a number on this because obviously everybody's plan is going to be different, but have some sort of lean protein. Let's just say a minimum of 4 ounces, somewhere in there. And that could be chicken, egg whites, whey, lean beef, 93.7, somewhere in there. Now the carbohydrates, now notice here I put the little, I don't even know what that little sign is, but about 30% of your daily carbohydrate intake should go around that pre-workout meal. You would like to have moderate to fast digesting carbs there, something like white rice, oats, fruits, rice cake, things like that. And then you want to have low fat and low fiber in this meal too. If we get too high of fat and too high of fiber, it's going to slow digestion down. Um, and our body during this workout bout shouldn't have to focus on digestion. It's focusing on the workout, and it's just going to cause you to feel sluggish, really heavy on the stomach. You don't want your body to have to try to digest this food instead of diverting blood flow and importance and oxygen and all this good stuff to the muscles, right? Now, if you'll notice, and I'm kind of, skipping ahead here, but the pre-workout meal is about 30% of your daily carbohydrate intake. And on your post-workout meal, again, 30% carb intake here. And we'll just kind of notate that for here in a second, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, the post-workout meal, this is where that anabolic window that a lot of people used to say is so important would kind of come into play. Again, that's not true. I'm pretty sure they have studies come out all the time that contradict each other as far as like the timing of these things. But I think the last one that I read is that muscle protein synthesis and recovery kind of happens. I think it was either 24 to 48 hours after that lifting bout was over. Now, obviously, you should eat something within 24 to 48 hours of that a lifting session. That's not what I'm saying. But that anabolic window of that, oh, you have 30 minutes to crush a meal before your session is wasted. If we really step back and think about that, that just sounds dumb, right? That's not how the body works. But this post-workout meal does a few things. It's going to replenish the glycogen that we just used to get us through that session. It's going to help us aid in recovery to repair muscle tissue. It's going to reduce muscle soreness to some degree. I mean, we got to have recovery. Um, we got to have the elements of recovery to aid us in recovery, right? So if we don't have any food at all, it's not going to help reduce any kind of muscle soreness. Like we need those recovery agents in process or in not in process, in route, I guess is the best way to put that. Now, you want to eat this meal 60 to 2 hours, 60 minutes to 2 hours of finishing your workout. And then you may ask, well, why shouldn't I eat this within 30 minutes of me training? And I guess that you could 30 minutes. But what you have to keep in mind is you're in the gym, you're training hard, you're in this fight or flight state, right? You're not in the rest and digest state, you're in the fight or flight state. And so once you walk out of the gym doors, that just doesn't automatically switch off. Your body has to kind of come down off of that high. And waiting at least 30 to 60 minutes post workout, for me, is going to be the best option just so your body can shift from that fight or flight state to the rest and digest state, and you'll actually be able to utilize those nutrients properly. Now, what this should include, again, I don't want to put a number on the protein because everybody's going to be a little different, but some sort of lean protein, at least 4 ounces there. And then into the daily, a carb intake, at least 30% of that daily carb intake. Now, these should be from high glycemic carbs, such as white rice, cream of rice, cereal, fruit, something fast digesting. Just to get those nutrients moving, getting them in motion. Now, you do want some fats. You don't want a ton of fats, but you do want some because you don't want that insulin spike to go way up and then it has to come way back down. So it spikes and then it crashes, right? We want a very steady, blood glucose response here. So that's why if we have a little bit of fats in there, it'll kind of blunt that massive spike. Now, if we look back up to here, 30% of daily carbohydrate intake, pre-workout meal, 30% of your daily carb intake, post-workout meal, that equates to about 60%, right, of your daily carb intake. So we have about 40% left if we're using basic easy numbers, right? So what about the rest of your day? This is where these other meals should support a couple things: stable blood sugar, appetite control, digestive ease. I don't want you to be cramming your face with food, like one big, huge meal that's going to mess your digestive tract up, and then just adequately spreading that protein throughout the day just to keep that muscle protein synthesis kind of going all day long, essentially. Now, now with that, we can kind of piggyback on that, spread protein evenly throughout our meals, and use the majority of the carbs that are left for a pre-bed, and then just depending on how many carbs that you have left for the day in total, you could spread them out across the day. So if we're looking at things uh, in a level of hierarchy, like priority. A pre-workout, post-workout meal is where the majority of your carbohydrates should go during the day. And then you should put the rest of them, if you don't have a ton, right before bed, right? And you could always pair that with fats as well too, like oatmeal and almond butter and a little bit of protein powder is always a good option. Essentially, what that's doing is that's going to be a slow release of nutrients all night long, and those fats are going to again blunt that insulin response. So again, we're not having a big spike of insulin, and it's causing you to wake up hungry, things of that nature. So, if you have, just to make math easy, 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, 30 grams should go, pre, 30 grams should go post, and then you have 40, grams left to distribute throughout the day, and you could put that 40 right before bed. And this will also help you sleep as well too. So basically, I say all that to say is the majority of your carbohydrates should go around training. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what about a rest day? Because I don't train 7 days a week. Now, this is going to vary person to person dependent, but you could bring carbs down and bring fats up slightly to stay balanced throughout the day without spiking blood sugar for no reason, right? If you're going to eat a pre-workout meal or a post-workout meal and you're not training, doing this a variation here could help, with a more stable blood glucose. But again, this is very person to person dependent. Some people are going to benefit off of keeping the meals the same every day, whether they train that day or they don't, which is what I personally do. And then some respond better to having that variance. It really depends on the person. For me personally, I like to do it just because I just like having the exact same thing to eat every single day. I don't want to have to vary my food and change up, how much I got to cook, how much I got to eat, how much I got to weigh out, just depending on the training bout. And you're probably thinking, well, it's only two variations, but yeah, again, that's just more a decision fatigue, and I just like having this one set of rules, I guess is the best way to put that I have to follow each and every day. So for me, that's why that I do it. And again, my training is a little bit different than a lot of folks. So those recovery days, I need those extra nutrients on the recovery days, on my rest days to making sure that I am recovering properly. Um, Now, a bonus is going to be an a workout shake. Now, this is more for advanced lifters or people who have a very high calorie demand. So if you're training longer than, let's say, an hour, hour and a half, and you're doing very high intensity lifting, like going to failure, actually taking your training to the brink that you need to be taking it to, those intra workout carbs, they can help. They're going to help with, a sustaining energy. Maybe could increase some performance as well too. And also, honestly, it's just a way to get in more carbs if your calorie demand is so high. And some great options for that is just regular Gatorade. I use Members Mark Gatorade brand from Sam's Club because it's like $10 cheaper per case. I am a cheapo in some aspects of that. Dextrose powder, and then you got cyclic dextrin as well too. It's those two are just essentially carb powder. This is what it is. Now, if you were to use something like this, and just my personal opinion, if you go on Amazon, don't get the flavored stuff because you're going to pay a lot more money for flavored carb powder. Just get the plain, add it to, a scoop of protein post a workout meal, and it's going to taste just fine. And so at the end all be all, don't take this lecture as you need to obsess over every minute of the day, on the hour, on the minute, that kind of thing. But if you're just throwing food around randomly and you're expecting to see precise results, you're going to stay stuck. And you're going to wish that you made these small tweaks to your diet, just to get that extra edge, to keep progress rolling forward. So, with that being said, does anybody got any questions with anything? Hopefully, all that stuff made sense. Anybody got any questions?
Hey, Austin, this is Dante.
Yes, sir.
Well, my training, I train super early.
Yep.
So as you know, my pre-workout meal is a piece of fruit, and that's pretty much it. And
Yep.
then, I got a pretty heavy post-workout meal, which is worked. It took some building up to, but it actually works now. Any advice that I should be on the lookout for as to if I need to change it or anything in that nature regarding the pre-workout meal?
Yep. So one thing that you can look at as well too is if you don't think that your pre-workout meal is going to be sufficient enough. Now, this would be tedious, but this is like really getting into the weeds of things. You could take your a glucose monitor into the gym with you just to kind of see what your blood glucose is doing across that specific session, right? Like if you start to feel lightheaded or dizzy and you feel like you don't have enough carbs in you to, take your blood glucose and just see what it is. That could be a sign that, hey, you may need a little bit more to sustain through this session. And we also have to keep in mind too, we could add more carbohydrates to that pre-bed meal, especially if you're getting up super early and you're eating somewhat later in the day. Your body is still digesting that food from last night. So you're essentially not going in there just on a piece of fruit. Your body is probably still processing that last meal of the day too. If you're having to get up, 3 or 4 a.m. to go train and you got in bed at, let's say, 9 or 10, some of that food is still getting digested, right? But one good way to tell again is just and it doesn't have to be, but one time, just take your a glucose meter in there, just see what it is, or if you feel that training performance is starting to decline a little bit, then that could warrant us maybe adding in something else um, beside the piece of fruit. And then on the back end of that too, if you check your fasted blood glucose and we see a spike and then a major crash, we could add something like a little bit of almond butter to that pre-workout meal that would keep that blood glucose more stable across the session. So there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Um, but again, that's why everybody's going to be a little different. Everybody's schedules are a little different. I eat a huge meal before I go train. Some people can't do that, but I don't want to say train my body because that just sounds a little odd, but I make myself eat a big meal before I go. Not several big meals, but just one big meal before I go, and my stomach can typically handle it, and my blood sugar doesn't crash as well too. So,
Yep, makes sense. Appreciate it, man.
yes, sir, no problem. Anybody else got anything?
So, for the dextrose carb powder, is that
Mhm.
something that can completely like cover your post-workout carbs, like for my post-workout meal, or is that something that you would just kind of take right after you work out?
I wouldn't let it encompass the entire meal. I mean, if you were somebody who, like you're let's just say if you like had no time, like if your work, if you got done training at 5:30 and you had to be at work at 6 and you had a very, high stressful, high strung on the go job and you had to have something, then sure, that would work. But if you have the time to eat a meal, and it doesn't have to be a big meal, but kind of going back into last week's call, if you're just slamming a big shake and you're not chewing food, that those salivatory glands aren't producing those digestive enzymes to get into your stomach to help digest the food, right? So you could be putting a digestion bomb essentially on your stomach. So you'll probably see a little bit of bloating, a little bit of gas. It's not something that I would recommend you do, but if we needed to like break it up, let's just say if you needed 100 grams of carbs post workout, you could break it up maybe 50 in the carb powder and 50 in something else, like a bagel or something. That would work too. That's going to give you that chewing action for those digestive enzymes to start rolling into your stomach. So,
Okay.
but great question. Anybody else got anything? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Um, oh, Miss Roxanne's got one.
Okay, so you said your post meal should be 60 minutes to 2 hours after your workout.
Hmm.
Okay, so then I asked you this question, but I'll ask it out loud in the group,
Okay.
our little thing. Anyway, so how long should you wait if your training days are just, they vary from day to day or week to week because of your work schedule. So how long should you wait if you train in the evening and then you have your post meal until you go to bed?
At least 30 minutes if you can. I mean, like, let's just say if your gym is 10 minutes away, from home, you get done training, you have to drive 10 minutes home. That's 20-ish minutes. You could probably kill 20 minutes by getting ready for the next day, taking a shower, unloading the car, doing the dishwasher, whatever, right? I would at least try to wait 30 minutes if all possible. Now, is that going to be, Miss Roxanne is sitting here, all right, 6 more minutes and I can eat, then I can go to bed. It's not that precise, but if you could, 30 minutes or so is going to be kind of the bare minimum, I would say. Like my drive from home from my gym is 30 minutes, and then it takes me 15 to 20 minutes to heat up my food and get it ready to eat. So I'm 15 minutes or so, 50 minutes to an hour, and I'm starving when I get here. So, it just kind of it gives your body a little bit of a chance to get out of that fight or flight into the rest and digest state. So,
And does it make a difference though? Like for me, like when I do my post meal or whatever in the evening, and then how I feel in the morning when I wake up, because it's one of my biggest meals of the day. So when I train in the evening, it's my last meal of the day.
yeah, so that could reflect a little bit of a scale bump into the next mo morning, but we have to keep in mind that that's kind of what's the best way to explain that? That's looking at small picture stuff. Look at the big picture. I mean, because I'm sure, on your days off, when you're able to, space your meals out how you want to and get a good night's sleep, the next morning that weight is probably a little more accurate of what your body actually is. I mean, if I eat a big meal at 11:30, and I get up at 5 o'clock, my body's only had 6 hours to digest it. So yeah, like I'm going to be up on scale weight too. But I also notate that in my notes that, hey, my last meal was 11 o'clock. So I'm going to expect that uptick. Now I'm going to expect to sleep good too. So it's just kind of it's catch 22, I guess, with that. So
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
yes, ma'am. Anybody else? Well, cool deal. If anybody else has any questions or anything, just let me know. Um, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will get the replay uploaded for the other slackers. I've already told Jacob he was a slacker for missing the day. But outside of that, I will talk to you guys soon. And as always, I appreciate you guys showing up. I'll talk to y'all soon.